Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Jim, welcome to Consulting Leaders. You have quite the journey. So you started in a spacecraft microelectronics with the Air Force. Then
Right.
you built and sold a tech company before moving into leadership. What pulled you into this? What key moments actually made you think, okay, I'm going to go from saving the world with the Air Force and building technology to helping people develop leaders full time?
It's a great question, Guillaume. The first thing is it wasn't part of a plan. That's the first thing you need to know. So don't give me credit for a plan, but it's interesting what happened because I was actually in love with electronics as a teenager. So that had already happened. And I was actually kind of a reluctant person to end up in the Air Force. I enlisted in the Air Force and eventually went to the Air Force Academy. And what I found after I found my place, I was put in a role as a program manager. So all of a sudden it was a return to the electronics world, but now I'm a program manager for advanced microelectronics. And the big lesson that I learned, I was both doing that while I was getting my master's degree. I was getting an MBA at the same time. One of the big lessons was if you really want to advance technology, it's not the technology itself. You have to learn how to build the teams that can do that. If you just think that you need to be a smart technical person, that's not enough. You've got to inspire people so they believe that they can do that. That was probably the big lesson, and that is what I was drawn to. I wasn't someone who was going to become a PhD in electronics. I was someone who really got energized when I saw people achieve something they couldn't do before. So a set of circumstances allowed me, when I left the Air Force after one tour as an officer, to basically attempt a high technology spinoff from the University of South Florida. There was a microelectronics center for research there, and I was very drawn to that. So my time with the Air Force came to an end, but it was a very rich relationship. Now it's like, take the training wheels off and see if you can do it with the company.
How is that going?
Well, that went very well. That went well. You've read that I basically spent 12 years in the co-founder, young CEO experience. At that time, that was a third of my life. We sold our company. Eventually, we had some success, but I always wanted to go back to that part where I wanted to be inspiring people. A big company bought our little company, and I'm not a big company person. So I don't think it's surprising for someone who starts a small company. You get acquired by a big company, and it all just moves at a different pace. There's policies and procedures for a reason, but to me, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an innovative environment. So that lasted almost 4 years, and it was really a bit of luck then. I was not looking to go into leadership development or consulting, but I did know I wanted to start another company right away. The government still wanted to do business with me, and a colleague from the past who I worked with in the spacecraft business contacted me and told me about a group of service academy graduates, military officers in the past who were providing elite leadership training. I didn't even know how to think about that. I got some advice from people I trust, and they said, Jim, you ought to try it just for the networking. And what I think my colleagues were telling me was, Jim, why don't you just do this to open up a new chapter in your life? And I reluctantly just signed on, and I didn't realize how fulfilling it would be. That was 2,500 clients in 12 countries ago.
That is crazy numbers. So, I mean, that's amazing. Tell me more about the problem that you solve, and I want us to put a specific lens on it. What are you bringing from the Air Force, from a tech founder background, to come and solve the problem that you help solving for your clients?
There's a couple ways to think about this. One is when we think of our Academy leadership team, or in my past in particular, there's a credibility with that. If you just say, "Hi, I'm a consultant, I'm going to help you develop leaders," a business person might say, "Okay, well, how can you relate to my business? How can you relate to that?" And in my case, there's instant credibility. Most people, certainly in the States here, still esteem the self-made person, the entrepreneur who took the risks. So I get to bypass that. That's a lovely convenience that, if you will, the background provides. The other thing is what I found, and I think your introductory notes captured this also. What I found is it didn't matter if I was in the Air Force being the program manager. It didn't matter if I was in the startup company or if I was pioneering in a larger company. What I found is all the leadership issues are the same. The environment doesn't matter. And we tend to think that just because we're in one niche, we've got our own unique issues. But you know what? People issues are people issues. And it doesn't matter. So if you can have a mind that provides the kind of clarity that the things you're going to do will work in an environment, that provides a credibility and a freshness to what you can bring. And it also means that we focus on fundamental leadership issues. We're not chasing the latest fads. We don't think that management techniques solve leadership problems. And there's no shortage of the latest management techniques or fads that we can find anywhere. We want to focus on the fundamentals that are actually going to help inspire people and produce results.
So I like a lot of things that you just mentioned here, including the niche. So my next question to you is, who is it that you help specifically? And do they belong to a certain category, niche, industry? Like, how do you decide, okay, amongst the 2,500 people that you've helped, what do they have in common? Who is it that you help?
Wow, I could argue they don't. But if we think about this through a marketing lens, and you look at something like leadership development or training in general, it's an incredibly fragmented market. So a good way for me to process your question is to say, what do I tend to find in common with this really diverse set of clients? And there's a couple ways to approach that. But I'll tell you the operative word I really like, and I think this is a very good word for anyone in the consulting world. I'm interested in those, whether it's an individual or it's an executive higher up in an organization or the organization itself. I want to connect with organizations and people that are predisposed to self-improvement, that are predisposed to a commitment to excellence. I'm not interested in trying to engage with someone who doesn't want to change anything. I want to, and if we think about that, that works well in the environment we're in. The pace of technology is changing. Everything is very, very competitive. But if someone has an organization where they're just harvesting a profitable product and they don't really want to try anything new, I'm not your guy. So in that case, then let's say there's an individual who's ambitious, who's a curious person. That person as an individual may engage, say, an open enrollment course and show up. They may or may not be supported in their organization. However, they may be influential in their organization. Or, and this is the ideal case, ideally, an organization may think, wow, what do we need to do to be competitive to attract people in a tight labor market? And if they can actually see genuine development of people and building a leadership pipeline, that's among the most attractive clients. It's those are the favorites, but you don't always get those. Often you start with an individual coming to an open enrollment program. They get excited by it. They tell someone else about it. And that leads to the organization saying, now we want to engage you. And we call that an in-house program. So a very natural progression, if you would, in pipeline development is to get the individual contributor into a class, get them excited, find someone who's influential or a decision maker, and then that can lead more to a corporate engagement. Every now and then, the president of the company will contact me, especially through a referral, but they're not always that easy.
If only. So That's the perfect segue. The thing I'm a bit curious about is, so you need to find people who, you can help people who are coachable, right? I think that's the most important trait. Like if you're resistant to change, if you think you're always right, if you're not open to change and to a different perspective, and to become aware and potentially work on your shortcomings, well, that says something about your leadership. But all in all, you're probably not going to be able to be helped at this stage. Now, who makes the decision of hiring you? Like, is it what you just mentioned, the CEO of a company who's like, hey, I have like 10 leaders right now that I think need training, come in and train them? Or is it the leaders themselves who end up reaching out to you, or that you end up in a call with to be like, hey, no, you need help. You need to make it happen, whether it's going to be the company paying for you or yourself. How do you navigate that?
It's 99% of the time, it's the organization that's sponsoring it.
Makes sense.
In the most convenient ways, or the easiest ones, those are organizations where there's a structure that exists. Let's say a training budget, or let's say a tuition reimbursement. Here's a way to think about it in terms of the leadership programs we provide. We could argue that what we're trying to do is provide the equivalent of an executive MBA condensed into a couple days. And all of a sudden now that's a value perspective, rather than someone saying, I'm going to spend 12, 16, 18 months and tens of thousands of dollars. We're compressing this into the raw leadership elements. That's one way to do it. What I find is rather interesting is those that are the most predisposed. Let's say those relatively younger people moving into positions of executive authority, if you will, or influence in an organization. When they're really predisposed or realize that they need to do something like this to be competitive, they'll find a creative way to work within their own corporate structure. And they might even need to find a way to, let's say, embed the costs into their overhead. They may want to hide what they're doing from the more senior people in their organization that may want to control it top down. But to the whole point, it's really unusual that someone will spend their own money personally to come. It's happened before in Europe. A gentleman from a German company came to a London class, and he made me swear he wasn't going to tell his supervisor. He took vacation, he spent his own money, and he was just one of those people, very intelligent, who was just that curious about personal development. But for him, it was a private thing. That wasn't something that was going to lead to a corporate engagement.
What motivated him, you think?
Say again?
What motivated him, you think?
That's a really good question. I don't think he loved his job. I think, and this is, I'm really going out on a limb here, but I think he had a job that was stable, that certainly paid well, had great benefits, but I think something was missing. I think something was missing, and he probably didn't feel comfortable to tell his company what he was missing, and that's why he sought out something different. I don't think he was seeking me. I think he was seeking something different that was personal, that he could establish, let's say, a confidential advisor just to share his thoughts. That's what I think was going on. But a very, very curious person.
Very interesting. How do you, so to those people, I guess to the companies, the corporations who also bring you in, how do you market to those people? How do you go from, okay, we might have a need, or we are not even fully problem aware yet, to, okay, this is what we need, and actually, Jim has the solution. Basically, how do you brand yourself, and how do you market your coaching and consulting, Jim?
Here's what I find very interesting. If we ever make the mistake of believing that the candidate client, right, the lead, the prospect, that person, that group, that company will have its own definition of what leadership means. So it's very challenging, let's say, using words or a brochure to try to explain to them what our course is like. For example, many organizations will have programs that are titled leadership training. In about 80% of the cases, if you actually look at the agenda, if you look at the curriculum, 20% or less of it is actually leadership development. It may have onboarding, it may have policies and procedures, all of these things, and then just this tiny bit that's leadership. So the way I found that's useful to do that is one's not going to verbally convince that person that what you do is different. They have to see something. It has to be tangible for them to do it. So that can mean one of a couple things for me. So for example, it means, for instance, if someone's curious about what we do, I'll incentivize them. I'll give them a discount. I may even have them attend a class for free if I believe they can be influential, because now it will change their view of what a leadership program can be. And for me, that, let's say, investment in that person could pay off easily, because I could waste enormous amounts of time, energy, and money trying to convince them. Or let's say I'm invited to their to meet with a couple people there. I can bring props to physically show what one of our special workshops are like, and almost give a demonstration of what the workshop is like in person, to where they can see what is happening. And again, that will just shatter their notions of what it is. It'll excite them, and it'll usually make them very curious. And so those aren't hard sells, if you will. What you're really trying to do is get that person to understand what a concentrated leadership development program can be, because in most cases, in my point of view, what they believe is a leadership program internal to their organization, to me, is not. And that's the barrier that has to be crossed.
Oh, I like this. And that's the positioning. That's the messaging, which I think for me is the foundation of it all, right? If you're not clear on who is it that you're helping, how you're helping them, and what's the message to get in front of those people, then you can do all the amount of marketing that you want. You're not going to get clients. So once you have that foundation, what has worked for you? Is it purely word of mouth? Is it, I don't know, you're an influencer on TikTok? Do you do emails? Like, how do you get this awareness to get that very specific message in front of the right people?
Once you've got one of those initial launch clients, 90% plus of what I do is referral.
Interesting.
It's extraordinary how dependent our leadership development programs are on referrals. If you don't deliver an outstanding, not a good, not a very good, if you don't deliver an outstanding inspirational program with high energy, absolutely connecting to the audience, it's gonna be a slog. It's going to be a lot of work. So to your point, the way I would rephrase it is, how do you keep the momentum going then? So for example, a way to, let's say, extend momentum like that, I find giving a leadership talk to a group that you have an affinity with. One that's really strong for our group is the Project Management Institute. Now think about this. A lot of our content, our approach, is to get people who are trained as managers to become leaders. So why not go to a group where they call themselves professional managers? Now, I don't want to say this out loud, but basically we're trying to convert all of them from managers into leaders. They may have their identity completely wound up into this alphabet soup of things after their name on LinkedIn. We don't care about that. We want them to be good leaders, okay? We don't care about the credentials, okay? Now, the credentials don't mean anything if you're a lousy leader. So what I like to do is go to an organization like that, and then I have the credibility to say that I've worked with a lot of chapters. That gives you an entry into the door, and then you can give an inspirational talk that's really outside of what they spend most of their time talking about. And usually that sparks the curiosity. And it also turns out that we have a relationship, for instance, with that organization, that our programs are certified by them, right? So they can get their continuing education credits. So very selective professional groups that could have an affinity for what we do is a very natural extension. So for example, especially during COVID, I've extended my relationships with those project management institute organizations all over the world. Some of them I visited, some I've done in webinars. One of the more recent ones was with Jakarta, and I think we had 120 people in the audience.
Like the alphabet thing at the end of the LinkedIn name. Some people are playing that game indeed. What's so mainly referrals. I get it. For me, that's the sign of a very healthy product and service, right? If you can grow steadily, uniquely relying on referrals, that has some pros and cons, obviously, but that at least means that the service is, outstanding. People recommend it, and you get more out of just what you're doing as a service. How do you move from initial awareness? So, someone, a leader, a corporation talks about your services, your coaching, to another corporation, other leaders who might be, in need of this service. How do you move from initial conversation to the actual, letter of engagement, we rock and roll? What does the sales motion look like for you, Jim?
Are you talking about at the beginning or the referral process itself?
Well, you named it. So let's start with the referral process itself, because if you're mentioning this, it probably means there is something in place. So curious to hear more.
Sure. Well, I think we could come up with a term, quality of referral.
Yeah.
The ideal one, let's say you're working with a president or a president and CEO of an organization who's willing to say our organization could not be where it is without that person, right? That's going to be a very strong referral. If you can do it in person where the three of you meet, that would be even better. But I would not want a casual referral. You'd want someone, and you might even want to write a case study for them and say, here's what happened. For example, in our Academy Leadership Group, we have something called a Leadership Excellence Partner Award that we bestow upon those organizations that have actually transformed. So let's say having them come visit our annual conference, have them do interviews with us, those are among the most powerful referrals. And at any time, I'm probably dealing with about 4 to 6 of those.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I love this. I think the quality of the referral is a criteria that not enough people talk about. Oh yeah, I get referrals all the time. Cool. Can they afford you? Oh, I don't know. Right. How do you move those qualitative referrals from talking stage to let's rock and roll? What does the sales motion look like?
The easiest thing to do, if one's in that fortunate position where you had a successful outcome with the client, then an ideal thing to do is take for example, let's say 4 to 6 people from the senior leadership team and offer to do something in-house on their territory with it. Because if there's genuine affinity, if the people in the candidate new client actually respect the referral, they're going to feel a huge incentive to do that. If you think about that, they're not respecting the referral if they don't do that. So you don't want to say, hey, I want you to sign up for 5 years of programs and make a commitment of all these dollars. But we just say, hey, why don't you try starting just the way we did with this organization? Let's start small, but do it in a concentrated way. And if you do that, you've captured a new client where you have champions all at the top of the organization. And that is a very attractive way to extend business.
This is very good. So you're not even taking a sales call. You're just like, hey, let's do something at a very small scale to show you how we do this. This is a paid engagement. And basically the lead is paying you to sell themselves. I'm not sure my English is correct here.
I think you've got it.
That's very interesting. Were you doing this at the beginning? Because that's quite when we think about marketing, sales funnel, right, in B2B coaching and consulting, it's always okay, you have tons of people wanting to get on your calendars, not always qualified. You add friction to the funnel, right? So you ask qualifying questions, you ask them to take a small engagement and so on. And when you don't have enough people coming through the funnel, you reduce friction. this is a hell of a friction. Like, hey, the first thing is going to be you pay us so that we can do that small engagement. Did you start with this, or did it come as you were starting to get too many referrals, too many people coming to the doors?
Yeah, the hardest part is getting started, right? The hardest part in our model, what our Academy Leadership Group does, it's loosely a franchise model where I have territories and use those territories to get those initial clients. That screening, that marketing segmentation is easily the hardest part, because you're going to attract many more people into an open enrollment engagement that maybe don't have the affinity. Maybe it's someone who is told to go to a leadership class who the organization's ready to, to let go. And that's the sifting, that's the hardest work. And for me, that was occurring. I've been doing this now for 15 years. That was probably, say, years 0 to 3 to 5. Once you get some of those, what we call in-house clients, where they bring you inside, all the referral power takes off. So in the style of programs that we do, where we're delivering these Academy leadership programs, when the demand for your in-house programs is rocketing, it just takes off. It just flips from the more arduous getting started part to, oh my goodness, how do I control my schedule now? And I've been in that latter part for a number of years.
I mean, I just respect the model. I like it a lot. And I guess this kinds of answer to the next question as well, which is, so when I was a consultant myself at PricewaterhouseCoopers, the partner who kind of taught me everything was like, at some point he pulled me apart and it was like, Guillaume, pulled me away, sorry. And it was like, Guillaume, there are two types of consultants. Well, two types of successful consultants. There are the hunters and the farmers. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. That's my jam. I was like, the partners who go the fastest, the ones who bring in the most money, are actually the farmers, the ones who are able to take that initial engagement, over-deliver, transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year process and project with like other teams from PwC. This is where the money is. So in your practice, Jim, how do you take that initial engagement and transform it into more business for you, all whilst delivering more value for the client, obviously? Is it because you're going to teach leadership to other leaders, putting between quotation marks because they haven't been through your training yet? Is it by just training further down the ladder? Like, how do you, transform one initial engagement into further revenue stream from that same client?
It's really interesting. There's a line in my leadership philosophy that addresses this. And one is to become a partner, not be seen as a vendor. And I think it's very similar to what you were just describing.
Yeah.
Because let's say from an intellectual standpoint, the enduring relationships are the ones where not just the delivery of value or showing results, but basically where the organization is going to embrace you. And let's say it's an organization that has not established its own internal leadership program, or maybe not even having a training department that takes care of that. What will happen then is we'll become the proxy for that, right? So for several of the organizations that I've had long-term relationship, quote, I'm their leadership guy. They're not looking for somebody else. They're not. They have all their other things they need to do. Their human resources department has all the things they do. And where it gets really fun is when they ask us to do something that's outside of, let's say, a pre-formatted 3-day leadership program, where they challenge, where they might challenge me and say, hey, Jim, can you address this? And of course, the best answer is, sure, I'll put something together for you. And that's when you have the genuine partnership. And again, it's that top up thing. So with several organizations, I'm embedded into the fabric of the organization. But it also means that there's an attendant responsibility. I think in a way, in most cases when that happens, their definition of leadership has changed. Their definition of many things has changed from their initial one to the ones that we've influenced them to believe, and then they adopt it. That's an enduring relationship.
at the end of the day, we live. So I'm quoting her at every single episode. So Sophia, we love you. We live in a trust recession time, and I don't think people are looking for vendors anymore. They are looking for partners, growth partners, development partners, whatever. Insert here the word that is proper for you, but partners. And I like this approach. Jim, you've reached a scale where you have more business coming your way than you can handle, in the sense of like you're gonna get people to pay to get that first initial engagement anyways. So I'm curious, where do you feel challenged right now? Where would you say you're stuck?
Well, I wouldn't use the word stuck, but challenge is a good word. My personality is one that doesn't like to relax much. But I've taken on a partner. In the last couple of years, and for different reasons. One is just for scale, but it's also for extension. It turns out this gentleman is a retired Major General from the Army, and he sought me out, which I find kind of fun. But we both have affinity to doing overseas work, and even some not-for-profit work. So that's part of it. So for me, the real challenge is really my own. Am I balancing my quote consulting business, the way you're phrasing it, with my own personal life? Yeah. And what's fun in this business versus what I've done in the past, I can merge my personal life and my professional life together. I'll give you a quick example. Our family has some philanthropic pursuits. So let's say I've got a client that I've had a long relationship with. I might say, hey, a fair price for me to be charging you for this program is X dollars per person. But you know what? I want to charge you an extra $200 per person, and I'm going to donate that to this cause. And I'm going to put your company's name on that. By doing that, it's amazing how much money you can raise. And if you think about that, not only then are you known as the effective leadership development person, you're also someone with a big heart. And again, it extends that relationship. So me balancing my time, finding ways to offload the administrative aspects of what I do, those are my major challenges. And maybe even in the next couple of years, I'll need to throttle back and not push so hard. I call them first world problems.
So 100% first world problem. But this is super interesting, and also in the framing. So I love everything sales motion. So you don't say, hey, it's that much. Say, I'm just going to throw a random example out here. I know this is not, I don't know how much you charge. But say, okay, it's going to be, $15,000 plus $200 per person that you're going to give to a charity. Not like, hey, it's $15,000. And just so you know, $200 out of those 15,000 will go to a charity. That's super interesting. Why did you frame it like this?
Why?
Yeah.
It's a test.
Okay.
It's a test. One is, if you think about it, if you've already got a relationship forming where there's a common definition of leadership, why not have common charities you support? Or find a reason to do that. And I'll tell you one of my affinities has to do with organizations that support autism. And in the United States, when I would give a talk or have a program 15 years ago, if I mentioned autism or that it's part of our lives, not that many people really responded. Now, if I give a talk on autism or I incorporate that's part of what our family deals with, 3 people will come up after the course and say, I'm so glad you brought up the whole autism thing. I'm in the middle of that and I'm not even sure what to do. And and again, this is the whole thing where you're blending. I think it's very difficult to be credible and to connect with people without telling, say, stories about vulnerability or incorporating the human experience.
It's so, funny is not the right word for this specific topic, but in the sense of the founder's story becomes so important today, People buy from people, not from company. Anybody can claim anything on internet. We need to see through the wall of like corporate jargon and whatever we are, just comfortable sharing, which is why we've decided to make the move to fully live. Like all our episodes are live because we want this. We want people to see the me fumbling and, not having the perfect English, and our guests being like taking the time to reflect, because authenticity is, I wouldn't even phrase it in the sense of this is what sells. This is what builds trust. It doesn't mean that you're going to sell, but you're for sure not going to sell if you don't have trust. So I love that. And being comfortable sharing some aspects of your personal life as a B2B coach or consultant, since you're the very one involved in the decision-making process and so on, is absolutely key. Jim, this was an absolute masterclass. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, where should they go?
They can find me on LinkedIn. That's an easy way. You can go to my choinque.com website, CHOINQUE.com, choinque.com. I'm very easy to find. I'm very easy to find. By the way, thank you for having me. Please thank your team. I think they're exceptional. The research, the questions, it's a delight. You've raised my energy today.
Thank you so much, Jim. And the team will appreciate. They're probably watching us right now live, and if not, they will listen to us. So thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders, and we'll put all the links in the description. If you want to check out Jim, go and check the description.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.